I call this meeting of the Siloam Springs Board of Adjustment to order. Roll call, please.
Psalm.
Here.
Montgomery.
Here.
Sally.
Here.
McKinney.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Bernard.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, as we know, make sure your phone's on silent and don't ring and bother us. Okay, first item on the agenda is a variance request.
Minutes.
Oh! I told you, I was trying to get through this in a hurry. You've all received minutes from our last meeting, which was held May 9th of this year. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Okay, now we can move to the agenda. First item on the agenda is a variance setback. Your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maegan Thomas, Planner 1. This is a variance request for a property located at 904 Eastgate Street. The request is to allow front porch to encroach into the 25-foot front setback by 13 feet. It should be noted that the construction of this porch was started without a permit. Since then, a stop work order has been placed on the construction of the porch, and any further construction is pending approval of this variance request. This is the site plan that has been provided to staff for the construction of the porch. As you can see, they are proposing an 8-foot by 18-foot porch, which is highlighted here in yellow. You can see the proposed porch would make the building footprint set much closer to the lot frontage than what was previously existing. It should be also noted that the 8-foot depth of the porch is much deeper than that of most other porches located within the same neighborhood. And this is what the house previously looked like. You can see they previously had a covered stoop, which was an extension of the roof line over the front door entry area. Similar house designs are seen throughout the neighborhood. Please note that the carport shown in this image was previously non-conforming and is now gone. Staff has no information as to the date of when that was removed. And this is the new porch that is currently under construction. And this is a side image of that porch so that you can see the encroachment a little more clearly. The image to the right of the screen shows the side view of the porch looking from the neighboring house. You can see that it sits closer to the front compared to the other houses on either side of it and is clearly visible from the neighboring house. And this is the before and after images side by side so that you guys can see that. You can see that the new porch sets the home much closer to the front setback than what was previously existing. And this is an image of 950 Eastgate Street. So this house is located within the same neighborhood. As you can see, this house is nearly identical in terms of setbacks and front porch design compared to the subject property. This is important to consider as it demonstrates that the subject property's condition is not unique to the neighborhood. The subject property is clearly not the only house within the neighborhood who does not have a porch. And this is the aerial view of the subject property. The blue lines are indicative of the front setbacks. As you can see, all the houses surrounding the subject property are aligned as the porches are built within the main structures of the home and they do not jut out into the front yard. Staff finds no grounds for a hardship because there have been no unique qualities to the subject property presented, which would allow the applicant special treatment compared to their neighbors. The issue with the porch has nothing to do with the gable design or that there is a porch at all. The issue remains that the proposed structure is creating an encroachment and any type of extension into the front yard would be treated in the same manner. It should be noted staff is supportive of renovations to properties so long as those renovations meet the code requirements, and staff understands that sometimes mistakes are made, but there needs to be a remedy to fix this. Code section 102-99 provides a remedy that can allow the porch to remain, provided that the applicant pays the required fine for the violation. However, the applicant has opted to take the variance route instead, which is the only other option to keep the porch as it is. With all of that said, staff is available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address this variance request? Please state your name and address for the record.
Bobby Reed, 206 South Dogwood Street. I am Mr. Lewis's banker, and I do apologize. I was not aware when this porch was built, and he was not aware of needing a permit to build this porch. And I don't mean to apologize for him, but this has caused some issues with water damage now that he's going to have to correct on top of whatever you guys decide. So I hope that you guys will please give him some grace and in this deal, and he's learned his lesson. Just want to let you all know that. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, I would entertain your comments, questions.
Mr. Chairman. So I just want to make sure I understood correctly that if it's not approved, it doesn't have to be torn down. There's just a fine or something that has to be paid, and
That
it can
is
remain.
correct.
Okay.
Say that again for me, please. Repeat your question where I can understand.
That the only option is not just for the variance
Kevin,
to be applied.
Can you please speak into the mic?
Yes, that the only option is not just for the variance to be applied, but that he can leave the porch or finish the porch, but he would just have to pay the fine for not pulling the permit and doing everything as it would normally be done. That makes sense?
That is correct. There are two options. There's the variance route, or he can pay the fine. Well, actually, I guess there's three. There's the variance route, or he can pay the fine for the violation, or he can tear down the structure.
And what is the amount of the fine, Maegan?
I talked to the building official before the meeting. They ran the numbers on it, but there's different ways to interpret it, and he thinks that he can interpret it a different way. But when they originally ran the numbers, it's based on the total square footage of the home, and so it's a $32,000 fine.
So Kevin, yeah.
And that's intended to be that way so that it deters people from doing this in the future and just paying the fines.
Was it originally written for house construction and setbacks?
I can't speak to what the original intent of the code was when they wrote that code.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just respond to that briefly. Yeah, I wasn't around when it was originally written, but I do believe that was the intent, was to apply to house-size projects. But the way it is written, as Maegan stated, I mean, the calculation, whatever the violation, is based on the size of the house. And while I have the floor, just have one other quick question for Maegan. Talked about options. One thing that came up in the staff discussion, and I want to know if this is still viable, but as I understood it, that a overhang like they had before over the door. I mean that can be enlarged and the design can be changed, but it's the attachment, the posts that go down in the front. If it's just an overhang, like a canopy or something like that, then that would not count as an encroachment.
That is correct. So it's based on the footprint, and so with the post that extends out the footprint of the building, if it was just an overhang attached to the roof line, it would not count towards the setback, but because the posts are there, it is extending the footprint of the residential home at that point.
Thank you.
It's also a poured concrete pad, is it? Right?
That is correct. And if they had I believe Ben said something regarding the grade. If it had been in line with what was there, then it would have not met setback requirements, but they had the foundation the way it was, and so it does meet setback requirements.
So, Mr. Chairman, while we all realize that this was not a good idea to do this without first getting a building permit, we understand mistakes do get made. But I call to attention on the item here where the board's determination of whether approval of the permit is keeping with the spirit of the intent of the code. And it says a setback variance in this area is not anticipated to impact property values because it permits a porch in similar design compared to the other houses in the neighborhood. So what we're looking at is will we be willing to create a variance and overlook the issues that have occurred? Because it does say also that if it doesn't impact property values in any way, but it could improve them if the house is remodeled and looks better. So it's hard for us to just judge a porch by that. What the big issue is it comes out too far into the setback. So do we want to have him have to take out that whole porch that he's built, or are we willing to make an exception? And do we think if we make this exception, it means that we have to allow everybody in Siloam Springs who remodels to all of a sudden be able to encroach on the setback regulations? So I think we're caught up in a spot there where we could make a one-time exception and not charge $32,000, or we have to look at, does it set up a perception that we're going to allow it everywhere?
I have struggled over this since I first read it. And when we had our pre-agenda meeting, we discussed this very issue. And it is a catch-22. And if we approve this a variance, yes, it's going to open up potentially Pandora's box to every resident who wants to say, well, I want to do this, and no matter what it is. And I asked the question of, and found the answer of being, with the exception of the historical district, the minimum setback in Siloam Springs is 25 feet. Minimum.
For the front setback.
For the front setback, correct. Minimum setback for the front is 25 feet in Siloam Springs, with the exception of the historical.
And also, that's just for residential. It's higher for commercial, but
Okay.
25 feet for residential.
But it becomes a dilemma. I drove through your neighborhood, sir, and I like what I saw at your house personally. I really do. And as I expressed to some of the members of the staff, I saw other things in that neighborhood that didn't make me too happy. But I'm sure staff is addressing those issues. But back to this dilemma, I need input from all of the commissioners and your thoughts. This, in my time on this planning commission, and I had a term before, and then I was off for a while and I came back. This is one of the largest dilemmas that I have seen.
Commissioner, if I may add just a couple other points to your discussion before you all get started. Two things to consider. One, you really can't take into account the look of what's being done because you can't approve it based on appearance because somebody else could do the exact same encroachment and do worse materials, worse styling, something like that, and it would be the same because it's a setback variance, not specific to because we can't control residential design standards. The other thing is because it's a variance tied to the footing, because of the way it's constructed, there's also nothing keeping anybody from enclosing that and adding it on as an enclosed portion of the house. So it's not simply a porch setback, it is a front setback variance.
Under what circumstances are we allowed to give him a variance? Is it just if he can show us a hardship, or are there other
The-
times, you know?
The criteria laid out in your staff report, those are the circumstances which constitute whether he has a hardship or not and whether he qualifies for a variance.
The design of the porch shows that it's 8 feet protruding from the house. Your setback is 25 feet, and you're saying that the total protrusion is 13 feet. So the house already sets into the setback 5 feet.
That is correct. It's already non-conforming as it is, and they're trying to further the non-conformance.
This house built with a building permit? Or was there a permitting process when this house was built?
The original structure was built in 1960.
Sir, I would invite you to come up to the mic and to make your comments, because this session is being recorded. And while there's only a few of us here, there's probably other citizens listening.
I said, I apologize, but I just went off what the pre-existing was there over the garage that was attached.
Name and address first for the
Oh,
record.
I'm sorry. Jimmy Lewis, property 904 Eastgate.
Okay, now go.
Okay. I said, I apologize, but I was just going off what was pre-existing. You know, as you've seen in the picture before I started, it had the carport added to the house, which is actually farther than what the front porch is. So I apologize. I mean, I guess that's kind of my ignorance, but it's not as far out as what it was. So I was just trying to.
Mr. Lewis, is this your first time building in city of Siloam?
Well, I'm not really. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a builder. I was just adding on a front porch. I mean, I've got several rental properties around here in Siloam as well. But
Mr. Lewis, have you done other construction of new add-ons to your existing properties that you own already?
just small things like cabinets, sheetrock, things like that.
Need a permit for?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if his home is already non-compliant, what would he be able to add on that would be compliant?
Nothing to the front, as it's already non-conforming, but he does, as you can see outlined in the red, he has that whole rear portion of his lot, so he could extend it out from the rear, but as far as frontage goes, he's maxed out.
And so the original carport, you said, was in non-compliance but had not come to the attention of staff. But did I read that staff discovered this was being built? Yeah, so you were driving around the neighborhood and saw this? Okay.
That's correct. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
clearly a $32,000 fine is unreasonable. What would be the process, Jay, you might be able to answer this, for the fine to be more reasonable? I mean, I don't want him to have to tear it down, but I also see the problem in approving a variance that could start a snowball effect for people wanting to be just a little further to the setback. The setback's there for a reason.
I'm not aware of any existing procedure by which the fine could be reduced. Ultimately, the formula for the fine is enacted by the board of directors, and presumably the board of directors could pass some sort of a resolution waiving or suspending or reducing the fine to some degree, but that would be strictly at their discretion. It's not something that staff could guarantee.
I think if you read through that section of code, it's pretty obvious that the spirit of that was to capture the structure. I mean, it talks about heated, cool square footage. This is a weird nuance, I know, with the porch specifically, but in my opinion, I know, Megan, you said there may be some different methodologies to use, but in my opinion, this is egregious relative to the project that we're looking at.
Agreed. If we voted against the variance, could it go to the board? Could you guys present something to the board for projects based on the square footage of the project? Like the 8 by 18 square footage for a fine goes in other words, a change to the ordinance, I guess.
It wouldn't be something ordinarily that staff would pursue, but it's something the applicant could request and the staff would respond to.
Okay.
Be initiated that way.
I think the problem with that is that as it sits, it's covered in a tarp and getting water damage, so.
Water in the house, yeah. Mr. Chairman, so my question is, the concrete pad would have to be torn up, is that your understanding? When you read this, that both, not just the post and the roof line has to be taken down, but also the concrete pad has to be jackhammered out. So the cost of that would be significant.
In addition to the fine.
Well, no, if he takes it down,
Or if he takes it down, there won't be a fine.
Right.
and his materials, if he can't reuse them, that cost of the lumber to buy them is moot.
If this porch had been built, this roof, or porch roof, that it was extended out, had been built without the cement and without the pillars, would it have been good?
It would be smaller than what they're proposing, but it wouldn't have counted towards the setback requirements, and it would have been fine. They wouldn't have had the variance or the fine.
If it had not extruded this far and did not have the post there.
Yep.
Nor the cement, it would have been fine.
That's correct.
Because that original stoop was a part of the original house that we did permit to be built where it was built in the 60s. It's just that a lot has changed since then, as I recall.
I can tell that all of the commissioners here have quite a bit of concern and consternation concerning this. But there comes a time, if there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman, if I may, I have a question for Mr. Lewis. If this board were to grant your variance, would you be willing to file a covenant that would be of record, run with your property, specifying that the porch would remain as it is, could not be enclosed, couldn't be enlarged or expanded in any way? Sure. Okay, and that would be a requirement before you would get a building permit. You would have to have that on file. Sure. Okay, so, okay. Again, I'm not saying that would be, that wouldn't make it legal or anything, but perhaps it could mitigate.
Would it be a condition of approval on this variance request? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that would be a condition of approval, and also would have to be done, yes, before building permit would allow the construction to proceed.
But if we do go ahead and give the variance, we're still opening up Pandora's box.
No question about it. Again, this would just be a measure that could mitigate it somewhat. But again, I'm not saying it would make it legal, but.
Yeah, good point. Even in the case, so let's say we approve, who knows what's going to happen, But at the same time, if other residents are interested in doing the same thing, they still have to apply for the variance, correct, Jay? Because we're not changing the code,
That is correct, yes. It doesn't just throw the doors open.
right? Because they still have to apply,
They still have to apply for a variance.
right?
And if we deny the variance, then you're opening up, well, wait a minute. You made an exception for this person. And we're doing basically the same thing that he had done.
And I think there's an exception of process that exists in situations like this when you have mitigants in place, to Jay's point. So that would be my answer to a citizen's request if we had approved this and had some reservations on another one is if there's mitigants involved, I think it's worth consideration. I still would like to see that reassessment of the potential of a recalculation on that. My quick math came out to 2,500, but I rough-shotted some stuff, but.
If it were just the project.
So you're saying your calculation based on the square foot of the property?
Well, now, don't make this on me, but
I'm
well, I
asking you.
estimated the cost at 30,000 and encroachment at 144 and divided by, the 144 was, the total square footage and then divided by 12 and 2,500. I'm not probably the person that makes
You're
that
not
call.
the person,
Yeah.
no.
You don't have the exact formula in front of you.
Well, I have the formula, but I don't have the inputs accurate. So I don't know the cost.
Can I make a correction? I said that the house was built in 1960s. It was 1977.
Oh, okay. But evidently, we didn't have a code in place then either, so.
Is there any other further comments?
Mr. Chairman, is it possible we could table it until we found out more information about the fine? Or is that for us to decide? I feel like I feel like it's a terrible thing to ask someone to pay $32,000. I think if there was a covenant that would always go with the property to prevent any further additions being made, that would help limit the damage. And I feel like we do have the right to say, in this one particular instance, we made this judgment. That does not mean we'll make it for everyone. I don't know if that puts us in a position to get a lawsuit or not. I just feel like we're going with a lot of I don't knows right now.
Jay, can you help me out on the question of tabling?
Yes, I mean, it is the board's, or the commission's, discretion, to table, anything if they want to. I don't know how the applicant would feel about that, but yes, it's certainly within the commission's discretion to table if they so choose.
I guess my question would be, if you did table it, what would the direction be of staff? What do you?
I would want the staff to come back with the information on the cost of the fine.
The cost of the fine is $32,000 based on the calculations that staff has
Oh, I
run.
thought you said you weren't sure of that.
$32,000 is what he got from the calculations building official. He said that he might be able to work it and see if
Okay.
there's a different way that he can interpret it, but from the calculations that we ran based off the code, the building official found that it was $32,000.
So then we know this, so no matter what we come up with, that's not the answer. The 32,000 is the answer. Never mind about tabling.
Just so I'm clear, and I think I already am, but I want to make sure, there is nothing he can do to modify what he has done already. He has to take it all away if he doesn't get the variance. He can't shorten it, he can't do anything. He has to.
No, he has to remove it if he does not get the variance or pay the fine.
Jay, is there an appeal process? So if we reject the request, can he appeal about the fine and go to the board?
You caught me on the one time I didn't bring the code book with me.
Okay.
I always bring it, and for some reason today I didn't.
Yeah.
So I believe there is a process where it can be appealed to the board of directors. I'm looking over at the other table to see if they can confirm that, but I believe there is, but I can't tell you for sure because I just don't have the code with me.
They're looking it up right now.
Okay, thank you. I didn't bring my phone either, so.
But to kind of go further into your question that you asked about, well, he would have to tear it down or pay the fine. If he were to tear it down and wanted to reconstruct it in the way where we talked about, it would be part of the roof line. It wouldn't extend out as far. He could do that in the future. But with the current proposal, right now it's either the variance, the fine, or tear it down.
So you couldn't take the current porch and modify that by taking it back towards the roof line?
Well, the current porch has the concrete and the post.
Right.
So he would have to.
Remove the pillars and take the roof line back.
And the concrete.
And the concrete
and
out.
the concrete.
The roof line that doesn't matter, right? The concrete matters, the posts matter.
Yes, the roof line does not count towards setback requirements. It is the post for the footprint of the house.
Approval of the variance sets the decision back on the owner, the way I understand it, so that he can either choose to take the penalty or tear that down.
That would be denial
Denial
of
of
the
the
variance.
variance.
Yeah.
What's your pleasure, commissioners?
The appeal has to be filed within 30 days of the decision by the planning commission.
But there is a process.
There is a process.
Just looking at the black and white of it, it doesn't seem to meet the 3 criteria for a variance. And we have a 25-foot setback for a reason, and that's substantially into that 25-foot setback. I know the board's always talking about adding sidewalks, improving the roads, all those things. A sidewalk's going to be much closer to that. I mean, it's going to make it just appear that much closer to the road if those things are ever added. There's no good solution, especially with the fine where it falls. And I would hope that he could appeal to the board, and the board can make a decision on a more reasonable fine, and he could just pay that and build his porch as is. But for me, the way it sits right now, I wouldn't approve the variance.
You're putting that into a motion?
Do you need a motion to not approve the variance?
Yes, we need a motion on the variance.
However I word that, sure, I'll make that a motion. Who's the master of words? Jay? Make a motion
my recommendation is always to move in the affirmative, because it reduces the confusion when it comes time to vote. So the motion would be to approve, but then you're free to vote against if that's your preference.
Oh.
He makes a motion to approve, then a nay vote is against, and a yea vote is approve.
Right. Because if the motion is to deny, then a yes
Yea
vote.
vote
yeah,
would deny,
it
and
just
a nay vote would
makes it
approve.
confusing. Yeah.
Up to you.
I mean, I feel funny making a motion to approve and then voting no.
Right. I mean, I would not do that
Do they have to make that motion if they feel funny about it, Jay? Can they?
No, it just makes the vote go more smoothly in my experience, but no, it can be made either way.
Well, just so I'm not voting against what I would make a motion for, I would make a motion to deny the variance because it doesn't meet the criteria. The number is.
Does it have a number for us or no?
It's the variance to
BOA 2308.
BOA 2308? Okay, make a motion to deny approval of BOA 2308, the variance for 904 Eastgate Street.
Okay, so when we do roll call,
Well, you have to have second.
okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm putting the cart before the horse again. I have a motion to deny the variance, BOA 2308. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Before we go to roll call, so we can understand how we're voting. If you vote yay, you're voting to deny the variance.
That's correct. A yes vote is against the variance.
If you vote yay, you're voting to
Yes. You're voting against granting the variance.
deny the variance. If you vote nay, you are voting to approve the variance.
That is correct.
Roll call.
Sally.
Before I vote, Mr. Lewis, I appreciate you trying to fix up your house. I really do. I heard you say you fixed up some other properties, and I truly do appreciate you trying to fix up your properties and make them look better. But based on what the ordinance says, I just don't see a hardship, and I don't, I'm glad to know that there's an appeal process. I hope there's a way that you can find to work it out. I wish that we could come up with a better way, but I just don't see how we can get there. So I vote to deny. So yes, to deny.
McKinney.
So I think I'd like to see more conversation around the calculation of the violation penalty. I think I could get there with a covenant that was filed of record prior to building permit issuance. So I'm going to vote no.
Smith.
I have mulled this over and mulled this over. Because of the regulations, I vote yay.
Bernard.
I agree that we all feel terrible about the issues that this is causing for the homeowner who just wants to improve the area. And I too have seen that Eastgate could use the improvement, but I do think that we have to stand by what our codes state. I hope in the appeal that they will come up with a better answer for him and that this could come back before the board and be changed. But at this point in time, I would vote yay to deny the variance.
Williams.
Yes, as I stated before, those reasons.
Song.
Mr. Lewis, thank you so much for coming. I would encourage you to appeal the denial. So yeah, we can, or the board can revisit the fine. I vote yes to deny.
Montgomery.
Yes.
The variance is denied by a vote of 5-1, 6-1, and the variance is denied. That concludes the Board of Adjustment agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Adjustments.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, signify.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Board of Adjustment is adjourned. Yep.
Make me have to come over there,
You talking to me or him?
any of you.
Okay.
Directly into it, that's the hard part.
Have to get there.
Okay, what do we have next?
Planning
Planning
commission
commission.
meeting.
What?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Planning commission meeting.
Call to order.
The planning commission has no items on the agenda. That was pulled.
That is false. Sorry. We have a code amendment for GI zone lot coverage is on the planning commission agenda.
Okay, I call to order the City of Siloam Springs Planning Commission. A roll call, please.
Vaughn.
Here.
Montgomery.
Here.
Sally.
Here.
Kenny.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Bernard.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
First item on the agenda is a code amendment, Chapter 102, zoning code.
Minutes.
Minutes. Boy, I'm trying to get that card out there where the horse will push it and not pull it. You've all received copies of the August 8th regular meeting of the Planning Commission. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the minutes of the August 8th meeting.
I have a motion to approve the August 8th meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, so signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Minutes are approved. Now we can go to item number one for the code amendment, Chapter 102, zoning code for GI zone lot coverage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maegan Thomas, Planner 1. This is a code amendment to address lot coverage issues in the GI zone for GI lots that are fronting along Highway 412, which is the city's only principal arterial street. The request is to increase the allowed lot coverage from 60% to 80% for lots meeting certain criteria. The first criteria being if the lot is abutting a principal arterial. Again, the only one of those is Highway 412. The second criteria is if the lot is 3 acres or less in size. Most of the zoning along Highway 412 is C2 zoning, which allows a maximum lot coverage of 80% by right. However, lots in GI zones are only permitted a maximum lot coverage of 60% due to the assumption that GI zones could be nestled within a residential neighborhood. For GI uses in neighborhoods, it would be more appropriate to keep the 60% lot coverage for consistency with the residential built environment. However, staff believes increasing to 80% for construction along a highway will better facilitate the full use of the property on smaller lots consistent with the commercial zones along Highway 412. For larger lots over 3 acres, we will keep the same 60% due to wanting to limit the extent of paving on larger areas. Most of the commercial lots on Highway 412 are at or less than 3 acres, so this code change is consistent with the roadway commercial built environment. Staff is available for any questions that you have.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Have any questions from the commissioners, seeing no one in the audience? Hearing no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second to approve the code change. Roll call, please.
Sally.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bernard.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Song.
Yes.
Montgomery.
Yes.
Motion is approved. This will go to the Board of Directors on
October 3rd.
October 3, 2024. Oh, 2023. You guys mess with me, I'll mess with you. Okay, next item on the agenda is board and staff approved permits. Any questions on these? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.